Hi everyone, welcome to this week's session looking at Chapter L about legacy issues within your Salesforce org. Shellen unfortunately couldn't make it this week. We had a bit of a confusion around the time zone change because there has been a time zone difference. So it's just me talking this week with you all, so I'm missing my Shellen. But as for those of you that don't know, I'm delving each week into a chapter of my book, Become a Super Salesforce Consultant. So this week we're on Chapter L. And this chapter is all about the legacy issues. So this will come up for you if you are in a situation where you're going into an organization before. They might have a legacy CRM, whether it's Salesforce or not. And you might have this situation where you're asking them to say, well, what have been the problems with the old CRM? Why are people not using it? And there are typically 7 different reasons why. I'm not saying that's exhaustive, there might be others, but what I've got for you is a very specific framework and a set of things to analyze to really actually go, well, is it these 7 areas? Because if you ask that question, the person you're asking that question to might not really understand the whole range of reasons why somebody might not adopt a system. And it can be quite anecdotal as to what they're saying. So what you want to avoid is walking into setting up a new CRM system, be it a revamp of Salesforce, which I've certainly been involved in, or as I say, replacing an old legacy CRM with a new CRM, and not being aware of where these legacy issues have been before, because those same things might happen again. And you want to avoid that at all costs. And so this really is a great, I say great in a positive way, a great exercise to do as part of your risk analysis with the client. And as I have in the book and I cover in my consultancy skills course, I'm a big believer in having a framework, presenting a framework to a client to look really professional in your approach, to explain like, well, these are the 7 typical areas that adoption can be a problem. So let's appraise these 7 areas and see if any of these have cropped up previously. But also as part of that risk mitigation strategy, you're also saying to the client, these are the 7 areas we want to make sure that we prevent a problem in going forward. So how do we set ourselves up for success? And within my risk analysis framework, I've got 23 risks in there typically, and some of these will dovetail with these areas. And so it's a great it's a great exercise to kind of really look at where risks can lie, where they've come up before, whether there's still going to be a problem going forward, because you don't want to just set up a new CRM system and these problems be carried over. And so it's just a really great exercise, because as a Salesforce professional or as somebody holding that project, you want to make sure that you are doing everything possible to not reinvent the same issues as before, to set it up for success, and to present it as a really sort of methodical, professional way to the customer. So in this chapter of the book, I talk about it's a tool called NLP Logical Levels. So my background is NLP coaching. And this model really translates so well into where problems could lie in the CRM. I have thrown an extra one in there for the 7th, though, that this model doesn't really cover. I think it probably overlaps in some point. But what I'm going to do is just talk through these different 6 areas, and so you can start to see, well, how does this align with where these legacy issues might be. So with NLP logical levels, it's presented as a triangle with the different levels within it. At the top of the pyramid, you've got purpose. And so with purpose, what you're looking at is there the desire and ambition for this to be what we call a Salesforce Trailblazer project? Is the senior executive team bought into this CRM being transformational in how they are going to engage with their customers, their donors, their stakeholders? What will that tangibly look like? So this purpose has to be like, what is our reason for doing this? Is there a really bought in mission? Is it really bought in by senior management? If they were going to be on the Salesforce stage, telling their story, doing a trailblazer video, we always get so inspired by these amazing videos. What would that story be? So you want to have senior management, C-suite brought into this big transformational vision about what Salesforce is going to do for them going forward. Because if they're brought in, they can communicate it. When you talk about change management, they are sharing. It's really, really important that they share this vision and this purpose of what this is going to do for the organization as part of that whole change management exercise. And everybody can see the bigger purpose of this. So is there a key purpose? Because if people aren't bought in at that level and there isn't that vision that's been created and communicated down, that could be one of the reasons. The second is about identity of the system. So second tier is identity. Now with identity is like, do they recognize Salesforce as the living, beating heart of their organization, and that actually the business cannot function without Salesforce because everything is being done within it every single day, every transaction, every communication, every piece of customer information sits within Salesforce. That's what identity is do they really, is the whole organization from the C-suite to the managers to how the managers manage their frontline staff all bought into Salesforce being the reason for being there? And I was taught at a early stage in my career as part of my Salesforce admin training, and we teach this now at Supermums, is if it doesn't exist in Salesforce, if it isn't in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. And that's the mantra that you need to pass on to your customers, in that, it doesn't exist if it's not in Salesforce going forward, and managers need to be brought into that, C-suite need to be brought into that. If it is seen as a admin tool or something that they must put data into as a secondary type solution, that might be where the problem lies. So how do you create this identity about Salesforce being your best friend? As I say, the living, beating heart of the organization. That's what you've got to create. Again, that's a big change management piece. It's them understanding the value and the importance around compliance, around driving their KPIs, about, basically not being able to do their job without Salesforce. So that could be where a legacy issue lies, and you need to check. The third is around values and beliefs. And so when you explain those other 2 points, the values and beliefs is that everybody needs to be bought into the value that Salesforce is going to be creating for them. And that really goes down to, one, the C-suite vision, as we've talked about, but two, a team and a department have to understand the value that Salesforce is going to be giving them. And then also going down to that granular level about, well, actually, how are the team feeling about this individually? Are they all bought in, or actually are there stakeholders that are not engaged with Salesforce, that potentially are poison ivy, that are, sort of turn people against it or don't use it? Because you need to do that stakeholder mapping exercise. And within change management and what I teach in my consultancy skills course, we put stakeholders into 4 different camps. And so it really is that analysis of like, right, is everybody bought into Salesforce? Are there any people that are really anti a CRM, not using it? And if you identify those people, how do you change their hearts and minds? Or is it that actually they have to, be spoken to, and maybe they won't stay with the organization long term, because they're not bought in? That's the reality, is there will be winners and losers. There'll be some people that go, or some people that can be bought in and engaged in it. But that has to be all managed. So values and beliefs is really about understanding how the stakeholders are feeling, who are least engaged, who are the blockers, who are the sleepers. There's a couple of the stakeholder groups we talk about, and really mapping that out. Because if you've got those people there, they're not necessarily going to go, you can't just ignore them and carry on. They're still going to be there. So you've got to really tackle it head on and understand who are the people that might be the resistors, and can you bring them on board with you, or is it that there's going to have to be an alternative path for them potentially? Then the next one down is capabilities. Have the team been trained in Salesforce? And when I say team, that could be anything from managers, new hires, people in the organization. Have they been trained in how to use it, how to do secondary admin tasks like build reports and dashboards, set up email templates? Do they even know what Salesforce could do for them? And do they know what to ask for to improve how it could function for their team? So a realization for me, you kind of don't expect some of these things, but when I went in and did a review of an organization, because it was mixed use of it, I discovered that new managers had come into that organization and never been trained into Salesforce. So they weren't using it as a manager. They weren't engaging their teams in really using it because there had been no training for them. They didn't understand what Salesforce was. They didn't log in. They didn't use the dashboards. And so capabilities is really understanding what level of training has been done already. How comfortable are people in using Salesforce? Do they see the value and what it could offer them? And so capabilities is something to really assess on that level. Then you've got behavior, which is the one underneath capabilities. And behavior is understanding about whether the system aligns to the processes of that organization now. So if you were doing a business analysis workshop, you'd go in and you'd understand their sales process, their terminology, you'd evolve the system to speak their language and to speak, to align and feel familiar to them. Quite often I've walked into situations where the legacy issue has been that we don't recognize the terminology in Salesforce. It doesn't speak our language, like it doesn't follow our process because they've been given an out of the box solution and been told to use it as it is, rather than having a in-depth BA process that customizes the language and terms that's already, comes out of the box with Salesforce, but it's been customized to suit their needs. And processes change over time. So maybe a new manager has come in, reviewed and changed processes, but the system hasn't been evolved with that. So behavior is, does the system align with the way that the team are currently behaving and the processes have currently got? Is it that it doesn't speak their language or align to their processes? So that would be your other check. And then finally, the one underneath that is environment. An environment is about looking at how are they accessing Salesforce? Does it present in the way that is useful for them? So some clients might, or some users, sorry, might access it via mobile, via tablet, offline, online normally. Does it load quickly? Does it present the right information to them? Quite often things like SMS, not SMS, but the phone apps and mobile apps haven't been configured. So it's messy, it's showing too much information. Maybe there's too many fields on there, is causing challenges. It might be with environment. You can also talk about integration. So is the email and Outlook integration integrated with Salesforce so people can log emails quickly or upload and create new contacts and leads quickly? So, looking at doing a technical audit, looking at the environment in which Salesforce is being used, how it's integrating with other systems. Is that a reason why it's not being adopted in the right way or used because it's, there's too many different systems that you're having to deal with? Is where environment comes in. And so as you can quickly see, all of those 6 areas there kind of go, okay, yeah, I can see where those typical problems, can present themselves. But what this does is give you a really clear model to just discuss all of this with a client in a very structured way. Now, the other thing that I've added in here, which doesn't present in this NLP logical levels, is data quality. And so if data has been an issue in the org, then people won't trust the system. They don't believe the data is clean. There can be quite a lot of misconceptions between teams around who's putting in data and if it's up to date or not up to date. So doing a data governance audit is really important. We have a free health check tool that we share as part of the chapter that you can download. And with the health check, it gives you all the questions that you would need to ask to look at the data quality and the data governance piece. But as part of this initial legacy audit, you'd ask the question like, do people trust the data that's in the system? Are they using it? Are they updating accurately? How clean is it? And if that is a problem, it will turn people off using the system. So that's where an action point then needs to be taken forward to go, well, how do we improve data governance going forward? What practices do we put into place? How do we clean up the data that's already in there? If you're going to migrate data, do you clean the data, migrate it? Which way round you do that, and who's going to take responsibility for data migration. Data migration and the data quality can be the biggest reason why projects get delayed and don't complete on time, because that bit hasn't been sorted out and managed as sort of a side project. So they're all things that you need to think about. Now, within this chapter, the book Validity sponsored this chapter. They have some amazing tools about that look at data integrity and support data quality. So have a look at Validity's tools around this area to support you with that. They can also, say, do a bit of an audit on your data. So they're the 7 areas and a tool and a framework that you can use to really assess where these legacy issues are. And what, as I mentioned at the beginning, just to recap, you want to be really analysing these areas and putting in a mitigation strategy to avoid them happening again. So I think it's a bit of a game changer looking at this. A lot of these lessons that I'm sharing now are things which I wish I knew in the early days. And obviously, after years of running consultancy projects, you see the same patterns and the same things happening that go, okay, this is the framework to use. So I hope that this helps you mind the gap, helps you to set up yourself for success on any projects that you're doing. I'd love your feedback. I'd love you to buy the book. All the proceeds of any book sales go towards a bursary fund to support other people to do our cause, particularly women who suffer from domestic violence. We're looking to really build a pot around that at the moment and using the book as a vehicle for fundraising. So everything is going back into a good cause, as well as hopefully helping you on your projects. If you are interested in learning more tools and techniques, I also have our consultancy skills course that's starting in April, and that goes into much more granular depth around tools and templates that can help you set you up for success on your projects. So we'd be happy to talk to you more about that course and what it offers you. So I hope that's good for today. We are just at 15 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed that. So welcome your feedback and thoughts, and I shall see you all next week for the next chapter. Speak to you soon, everyone. Thanks for joining. Take care. Bye.